Hey friends, my name's Timothy, though some people do call me Tim. I'm a professional dungeon master running over 300 games of Dungeons & Dragons a year, and today I'm wandering around a paddock because we are musing on the topic of action economy, and it seemed like the kind of thing you should probably be doing instead of sitting for. Anyway, the topic is brought to us by Archer's Friend. Thanks so much for being such a great supporter and always having excellent comments and insightful experience to share with the rest of us. I really appreciate having you on board, so thank you for that. The topic specifically is about how action economy differs and interacts between players and monsters. In kind of a simple term, when I'm talking about action economy, basically what I mean is how many actions either side of any given battle have available to them. It's pretty common for players to concern themselves with their action economy to make sure that they have not only a action to choose from every round, but a bonus action that is also going to be useful to them. Reactions are part of that economy as well, and players typically have a pretty wide variety of choices in all three action categories. Monsters, on the other hand, don't. As written in most of the materials that are out there, particularly in the older materials of the monster manual and the like, monsters pretty much get an action every round, and very few of them have access to anything that might constitute a useful bonus action or a reaction that is not just taking an opportunity attack. That's been largely described to be a big problem in D&D because it puts the monsters at a huge disadvantage. The more actions that you can take that have a substantial impact on what is happening at the table, the more your likelihood is to win. Now, that said, the base idea for Dungeons & Dragons and what the designers are looking for is a situation where under almost all circumstances, the players do win. We're not actually trying to describe and create a game where the players are unlikely to be able to complete any single encounter. Instead, the idea is to make a situation where the players have to manage their resources over the course of multiple encounters in order to be able to determine whether or not they can survive efficiently with minimal danger, or whether they can survive a long series of encounters. So whenever we go the extreme of trying to create monsters that challenge our players to the point where they are likely to lose, we are not necessarily keeping our eye on the prize when it comes to the game itself. So it's okay that the players have more actions than the monsters at times, but it does grow a little bit dull, a lot of people say, and I can see that. Certainly there's no problem with spending some time on a specific monster or a specific boss to beef up its action economy by giving it more actions to bring it closer to in line with the players, and the movement of action economy by creatures dying and thus no longer having actions available to them is a pretty useful twist on how things go. But the sort of the be all and end all of the game between the two of them is that you just want to make sure that there is tension in the encounter and fun occurring. And sometimes we get so focused on making sure that our turns are as exciting and dramatic as the players' turns that we lose sight of the fact that our turns set the tone and the pace of the encounter even more so than a player's turn might. The Angry GM has a great series about narrating combat like a dolphin, to where you leap up into the rules and then dive back down into the story, and you're trying to spend as much time down in the story as you can and as little time bogged down in the rules. And the simplicity of the action economy for monsters actually makes that way more possible then when we start creating these action-oriented monsters that take up a lot more of our DM's cognitive space and a lot more of their time in order to put them out there into the world and run the battle itself. The more complexity that we add, the slower everything is going to be. So we want to try and find ways to add depth or options without adding a great big grind. With that in mind, I think that it can be important to allow an imbalance in the action economy. And the action economy, when you're looking at how many actions your monsters are going to have versus how many your players are going to have, that's a big indicator as to the kind of flow that you're going to experience in the battle proper. One of the things that I really liked about legendary actions is how they allow that ping pong back and forth twisting of the tension dial, because immediately after a player does something, the big bad does something to highlight how cool and awesome they are. And that's one of the examples of how the action economy can play a really big role and part. I think when it comes to that, one hack that I use a lot is to increase the number of legendary actions if I'm increasing the number of players. It's pretty common for me to give an action for every a legendary action for every player in the group -1, because despite what WotC tells you, you can't actually balance something for 4 to 6 players. The difference in power level is just way too great. I would say that when it comes to monster design, if you're going to add reactions and bonus actions to monsters that are already existent because you want to level the playing field and not have to add as many monsters to the field while still increasing your economy of actions on the monster side of things, which is a laudable goal in order to be able to set the right mental theme and the narrative of the story by having fewer creatures that are just a little more powerful. Then you just need to be really careful to ensure that those bonus actions and reactions are fast to adjudicate, that they're quick and easy, and they're not going to slow down the game with a whole bunch of extra dice rolls and time-consuming stuff. Things that are able to stay within your control as the DM are often the best on that, whether that be because it's a movement option that teleports you a short distance, or because it's an attack roll with damage, which means that you can roll those dice together and you know in advance what is going to come out from that. Whereas if you're utilizing lots of saving throws and those kinds of interactions, you're putting those out there, and then it slows everything down as the players have to interact with it in a returning fashion, and so that can really bog things down a little bit. I think that the action economy favors the players almost always, simply because the players are more powerful than any given monster of similar sort of tier to them. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I hope that this helps to sort of shake out some thoughts on this. I'd love to hear your thoughts about action economy and why you feel like it's important to balance the number of actions between monsters and players, or why you think that that's not important. Feel free to leave a comment and shake that out. And if you've got an idea for one of these Monday musings, then I'd love to hear that too. Thanks so much for watching, and happy adventuring.